In this video, we're going to be making 1 gallon of hibiscus wine using dried hibiscus flowers. Hi, I'm Charles and welcome to DIY Fermentation, your site for doing fermentation on a shoestring budget. Now, you've seen me make a elderflower wine before, about 3 months ago, using dried elderflowers. Okay, that seems to be going along pretty good. Let's go ahead and try it with a hibiscus flower. Seems to be another popular wine made with flowers these days. Dandelion will be next. And let's see how that turns out. Okay, to make this wine, we will be using the following. We're going to be using up to 2 ounces of dried hibiscus flower. This particular one is hibiscus flower, Fleur de Jamaica. You can use whatever hibiscus flowers you want. Up to 4 cups of sugar. We're going to be using red Star Premiere Blanc wine yeast. Of course, you can use whatever you want. Juice of half a lemon. If you're using a yeast nutrient, please feel free. We are going to be using up to 1 gallon of water. This is a 4 liter, but you can use a 1 gallon carboy to do primary fermentation in. You'll also need another one later on to do secondary fermentation in later on. You will need an airlock with stopper. If you've got one, a hydrometer to let you know how much alcohol you're going to be producing with this particular wine. And of course, before we do anything, all of our equipment will be sanitized using a sanitizer. In this case, I'm using Star San. That's what I'm going to be using to make this wine. Okay, this is what I want to do. What I want to do is to take half of our 4-ounce bag of hibiscus flowers, 4-ounce bag, so half of that's just 2 ounces that I'm going to need for the recipe. I'm not going to measure it out. You can if you've got a scale, that'd be great, but I'm just gonna eyeball it. It's not an exact science. And I'm going to put in enough water just to cover it. And that didn't cover it. So let me scoop out a little bit more. Good enough. Now this water over here is part of that 1 gallon water that we're using to make this wine. Again, it's filtered water. You can use spring water or whatever water you just currently happen to have. But that's what we have over in this pot. Now what I want to do is bring this up to a simmer. I don't want a rolling boil because it might bring out some of the bitterness in the flowers. I just want to make a kind of a tea out of it. And when it comes to a simmer, then we'll turn the heat down and let it come down to room temperature. Now, as far as the water in the big pot is concerned, I want to get this water warm. I don't need a boil, certainly not a rolling boil. I just want it warm enough so that when we add our sugar, it'll be a lot more easily dissolved than trying to do it in cold water. I can do it, but I'm just going to let it come to warm. And that's on there. I just need to put on. All right, wait for things to happen, things to get hot, and then we'll move on. All right, now that the flowers are at a simmer, we can go ahead and turn the heat off of that. And our regular water is still cool to the touch. All right, I'm gonna let that get just a little bit warmer, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and add my sugar to that. So speed things up a bit, and we'll wait for that to get warm. And as far as this is concerned, we'll just let that come down to room temperature. All right, that's come down a little bit in temperature. Let's go ahead and put our sugar in there. and stir until dissolved. All right, I think that's dissolved enough. All we got to do now is just wait for both sugar and the hibiscus tea to come down to room temperature. With everything now cooled down to room temperature, we need to transfer our sugar water and our hibiscus water into our carboy. Now, if I had an extra set of helping hands, I could probably just do this all in one operation, but I'll just do it the slow way. And for our hibiscus tea, we're going to go ahead and strain that in. Do it over here. I just know that's just going to, those flower petals are just going to plop all over the place. So let's see if I can keep them in place with a spoon. All right, not too bad. Now we still need to add our acid blend substitute, which is the juice of half a lemon. And let's just go ahead and incorporate that. All we need to do at this point is to add our yeast and probably swirl this up a bit so we can even out this mixture, because we definitely have our hibiscus liquid up here and the rest of our sugar water down here. So I'll probably just go ahead. In fact, let me do it now. I mean, it's kind of pretty to look at, but let's go ahead and, I mean, we had to incorporate some oxygen in the mix anyway. So I'll just give it a little shake for now, and definitely give it a much more thorough shake before I add the yeast. I figured now is as good a time as any to take a hydrometer reading before adding the yeast. And it looks like this is going to come in at 1.092 as the final reading, or the initial gravity reading. Now the last things we need to do to turn our sweetened hibiscus flower juice into wine is to add our yeast, which, if I can do this correctly, is 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. And then put in our airlock. I always like to have my airlocks like so. And I don't really need a big pile of yeast floating on top of my mixture, so I'm just going to give it a little swirl to begin incorporating it into the musk, and voila, we've started the process of turning turning hibiscus flower into a hibiscus flower wine. Now what we're going to do following this, because there are several more steps, you know, from getting it from here into getting into a wine bottle and getting it into a glass. Yes, you are going to have to rack it periodically. Usually after every 6 or 7 weeks or so, you'll notice that there's going to be sediment building up on the bottom. So you want to transfer that into another container to get it off that sediment several times. Following that, The wine, when it's finally clear, the wine may need to be degassed. That's another step. It needs to be bottled, which is another step, and so on and so forth. All of these steps you can find in my playlist on my do-it-yourself fermentation channel. I don't incorporate them in every video because it's the same process for every wine. So they're standalone videos. I would suggest you take a look at those. But for the time being, I will put this away with the rest of the batches of wine that I've got going and check it every now and then to gauge its progress. Progress number one, I want to make sure that I've got CO2 gas going through my airlock so that I know that fermentation has at least started. But there you go. Those are the steps for getting your hibiscus flower wine in process. As you may have seen in any of my other taste testing videos, I don't really rely on a lot of pomp and circumstance. It's usually just get right down to it with just a few particulars being noted. And one of those particulars are going to be this. The wine is clear. And I will say this, a couple of things about this. When I finally got around to bottling this wine was a couple of months ago, the wine did not need to be back sweetened. It retained its natural sweetness. So I got the benefit of having a clear wine with no sediment and a naturally sweet wine. And the pouring date on this was 3/20/21. Had an ABV of 8.66%. It's kind of low, but hey, if you're looking for something that's drinkable without a lot of effect, this will do it. And this wine has been pasteurized. Okay, now one of these days, I'm actually going to try and do a wine tasting video where I actually go through the entire procedure of properly tasting a bottle of wine. There are a number of excellent videos out there which shows you the entire procedure, but I just don't have a lot of time for that sort of thing. So we're just going to get right to it. Try using the new corkscrew. See if I get lucky this time. I think it can go just a little bit more. All right. Or maybe a little bit less. Okay. All right. Can I get it all in one piece this time? So far looking so good. Huh. I did it. Okay. It's all in one piece. I think the shorter corks that I've been using might be the reason for that. All right. That first sniff is usually to find out if it's turned to vinegar or something like that before I start pouring a glass. But, all right, there we go. All right. I have the benefit of having two bright lights right here, so that when you see me looking at the color and clarity, it's because I got bright enough lights to be able to see it. But no, it's no sediment. It's perfectly clear. The two really don't smell anything alike at all. Nope, not really. Again, I like the fact that I didn't have to back sweeten it. It's a tad bit on the sweet side. I mean, it's not a dessert wine or anything like that, but it's certainly not dry. It's a tad bit on the sweet side. At 8.66% ABV, you don't get any of the alcohol either during the inhale or on the taste at any point as it goes down. It's not bad. If I had to make an adjustment again, and I found this out with a number of my other wines that I've tasted, is to adjust the acidity downward a notch. So half of whatever I used initially, whether it's half a lemon or a quarter of a lemon. These days I find that just using a simple squeeze of that quarter of a lemon without trying to wring out every possible last little drop might be a better way to go for acidity. I take back what I said about it being sweet. It is sweet, but on the back end, it has a dry taste to it. It tends to dry your tongue out just a little bit. This might taste awfully good as a mead. I think I can say that as a wine, it's workable. The ABV level was kind of low for my taste. If anything, I might adjust the wine yeast, whatever it was that I used, into something that's a bit more aggressive. I think my significant other would definitely enjoy this as is, but I prefer something with just a little bit more kick to it. But if you're just looking for something just to have while watching TV without really worrying about having the effects of the alcohol kicking in and altering the effect of the afternoon or evening, this would be a good wine for that. Yeah, this is not bad. It's not bad. It's not thin. It's not thick. Body is just about right, especially since I once again, did not have to add any sugar to it. Natural sweetness. I can now see, although I think I am going to try it as a mead, I can now see why people, or some recipes that I've seen that are out there, have used hibiscus in conjunction with some other fruit or some other flower. It adds a nice component. So again, I'm going to try something really very simple. I thought I could do it in under 5 minutes, but I guess that's not going to happen. Keep this video short. This was a relatively inexpensive wine to make. I certainly have enough left over for another batch, and I think I'll end up using this for the hibiscus mead. Give that a shot in a later video. But yeah, overall, I'm not disappointed in this wine at all. Would I recommend you making it? Sure. It seemed pretty simple. So there you go. 12-month taste testing of the hibiscus wine. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the upcoming video with something else. Again, please click on that subscribe button. Notify also helps. Patreon support is definitely helpful. Again, Patreon is to help support the channel. YouTube memberships are basically a way of gaining access to certain additional content that is not provided anywhere else. It's again a way to help support this channel, especially to help pay for that mead that I'm going to have to use this to make. So again, once again, last time, see you in the next video.